Welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be continuing building the power station, and we're going to add the 120 volt version on top. This is going to go up here. We're going to put our 2000 watt sine wave inverter in there. We're going to add some receptacles on the outside. We're going to add a monitor to monitor what's going on in here on the outside of the box. And we'll add some more USB outlets on the outside. So let's get at her. Just a quick recap of what we got so far. We have 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate 4 batteries inside. We got some cigarette lighter style plug on the outside here. We have 2 USBs out here. We can read our voltage in there. On the back, we have the main cutoff switch and the 2 outlets here that will go to our inverter on the top box up here. So we're gonna make cables that go up there. To get this started, the first thing we're going to do is locate our holes to put our mating lugs up here, and that will deliver power to the inverter. Go about an inch and a half down from that point there. Now I'm going to put the inverter in here and get some cables made up for that. I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to mount the inverter in here. Might do the same thing with a couple pieces of closed cell foam on top, because it just happens to fit snug with the top. But we'll see as we go. That's about where it is, so we need to get some cables to go from here over to here. And the same for the black ones. Now we'll install the power cables. Wrong end. There we go. The power cables are hooked. The power cables are hooked up. They're nice and snug. There's some room to move around if we have to, and we'll move ahead. Now we're going to install these plugs on the end here and here, and these will be plugged into the AC outlet on the inverter. I hope 1 3/4 inches. That'll allow us to pass this through the side. Well, we don't have a 1 3/4 inch hole saw, so we're going to use a 2-inch hole saw. I'll just find the center here. So there's a lot of argument in the world about whether that's up or that's up. I guess it's only North America, but I like that way. It's more like a smiley face or a scary face. And we're going to use the screws that were provided with them. There we go. There we go. I checked on the inverter. Set that on ohms. just shows continuity. So if we check one side, we check this side up here, we're getting continuity. So that tells me that these aren't separately wired outlets. So we can plug in one and power both of these inside, and that will be fine. We're not losing the benefit of having two outlets because they're both wired off the same circuit. Now we're going to wire the back of these receptacles into a male plug that will plug into the inverter here. In order to get the wires out of each receptacle into one male plug, I'm going to utilize these little blocks, and we can jimmy them to work for us. The way these blocks work is that this provides continuity between this side and this side. But it doesn't connect to the next one. So we can use these little guys and cut them as required. So we'll have the power coming into one, and then we'll connect it to two others that will feed each receptacle. I have this old cord off an extension cord, and I'm going to use that end to plug into the inverter, and we'll run that to our little block. These wires onto the block here. So that's our power in, and our power out will come off each of these points going to our receptacles. And that'll be mounted over there like that with bolts. All right, we're going to unplug this for now, just so we can get the wires hooked up. And I might point out, not surprisingly, that I screwed these in, and one of the screws I have to get to attach the wires on the bottom side. So I'll have to take these both back out and get the wires hooked up, and then I'll put it back in. But first I'll get my cables made up. You can see here, little green screw, that just pops in there like that. Goes in the hole there like that. And we just snug the screw up. And good to go. Find my screwdriver. I don't get the insulation under the screw. There we go. And of course there's a brass side and there's a silver colored side, and the white wire goes to the silver and the power wire goes to the black. The brass is black. Screws back in. Yes, some people might wonder why I don't flip it over. I'd be surprised if I ever have to take it out, but if I do, that's what I bear. So we'll get our wires hooked up to this. Black to black, white to white, green to green. I think what I might do, since I'm using the terminal blocks, I just might put them all under one block like that. If I can find my screwdriver. So there's our terminal plug all done. We'll get that mounted over here on the side, out of the way. Then we'll put its little protective cover on, just so I don't, if I'm poking around in there, I don't get lit up at some point. So I got the terminal block mounted, and I cleaned up some of the wires and put some tie wraps on them, just for a bit of housekeeping. Keep it all nice and clean, so you know where all the wires are and what they're doing. Now the next step is, you can see there's an information panel here, but this inverter also came with a remote one. So we don't have to open the box. We can just mount this here and run a cable to the inverter so we can see what's going on, and then we can also have it closed and operate the inverter from the outside. So we'll get that mounted right now. So the hole we need to accommodate this is 2 5/8, and that'll give us clearance for these little bolts and the RS-232 plug, and 2 1/8 this way. So we'll get that laid out right now. Might be a little snug. It's better snug than too big. We'll go with that. Perfect. I gotta take it out so I can take that tape off. You can see this does have some places for some screws, bolts, whatever. It fits so nice and snugly though, I think. You might just put a couple screws in there to keep her snug. So you can see I mounted it with some screws here. They do poke through on the other side, but I'll get some tape on them to protect it. I just thought it was best to mount it to the plastic with those screws that would self-tap into it. So we'll get that protected and move ahead. The inverter did come with the RS-232 cable. Maybe it's a Cat 6 cable. I don't know. But anyway, it's enough to go from the back of a very big truck to the front, which makes sense. But we're only going 3 inches. But I'm not going to cut the cable. So we'll just plug it in. This guy over here. And plug that into there. So we're good to go there. So we're ready for 120 volts out of here. As far as everything in there goes. We still have to make cables. They go from here to there, and I'm also going to add a 12 volt outlet up top here. Now, since I've never used this inverter before, I don't know how much heat comes off, but it looks like there is some effort to have a heat sink on the top here, and there is definitely fans on the back. So I'm going to put some holes in here to facilitate the movement of air. And hopefully not bugs or otherwise. We'll see what happens. So this is the opposite side from where the receptacles are, obviously. And we're going to wire this little job in right here. This little thing includes a USB outlet and a PD outlet. And we'll put that right there. And we'll put our ventilation holes in here. So I'm going to start by drilling a hole to allow the wires to pass through for the back. And then I can mark the holes much more easier. Perfect. As you can see, I have a LED light here that tells when this block is powered. These are known as ghost lights because it sucks up power whether you want it to or not. It's on, and even when the inverter's off, this will be powered. So I'm gonna put a switch on this whole block that will be able to control when power is coming. Because if I'm not using it, I don't want that light on because it sucks power and it kills my batteries. So I'm going to put a switch in there that will control the power going to this little job here. I'm going to start off just by drawing some circles on here.
and I'll use those to define where my holes are going to go. I'm going to drill a bunch of small little holes as opposed to drilling one big one. Oops. And in the future, if it's not enough, I might be able to add a fan on the back that turns on.
So the last thing we have to do to get the top operational is run some jumper cables across here. So we got to make those up. And we'll use this heavy cable. And we'll use these lugs as before. But this time, because it's exposed on the outside, I'm going to use the shrink wrap, the shrink tube on the outside just to protect the lug, so who knows? We don't want somebody getting in there. So phase 2 of the, what I now call the Homesteader 2000. We have an inverter in here. It's running off the lithium iron phosphate batteries here. The output, which is not plugged in right now, runs off that block, terminal block there, and it goes to these two outlets, here and here. When we turn the power on, we'll be able to turn it on there. And on the far side, we have our new USB outlet here, as well as this PD outlet. So let's turn the power on and see what happens. All right, we've turned the power on. We got power down here, so we know there's power coming in. We got 13.2 or so. And we got power there, two USB outlets. You can turn that off. Now for the big decision. $13.5. It's going through a test cycle. We're good. Let's find something to plug in. See what happens. I have this handy spotlight here. There you go. So in a further episode, we will do some testing on this. I'll tell you how much battery life there is in there, like for running a freezer. And that's the main thing I want to have, is because if we run out of power, which we do a lot in the wintertime, that we'll want to be able to power a freezer up or a refrigerator or many other options. So for now, phase 2's done. Looks good. It's running fine. We'll also do some testing to show you what happens when it starts to get warm. So to add to our diagram from last time, we have our inverter. So we're coming off of here to the negative side of our inverter. And we have this coming off here to the positive side of our inverter. And then we have the 3 wires going off to these guys. Let's just call that our ground. And then the only other thing we did was we added our USB point. On the side. I should have added the switch in there. Remember, I put a switch in there to prevent the LED from being lit all the time. So it's pretty straightforward. A lot of modifying the box, but I love it when a plan comes together. So there'll be more to add on for phase 3.